Shalom, friends. It's a pleasure to be here today with Professor Peter Van Inwagen, who is the John Cardinal O'Hara Professor of Philosophy, Emeritus. While he works in a wide variety of areas of philosophy, much of his work has been in metaphysics, the philosophy of action, and the philosophy of religion. He came to Notre Dame from Syracuse in '95 and was elected a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2005. Lots to talk about the professor in terms of his work, the importance of his work and his publications, but we want to jump right in. So, Professor, thank you for taking some time to talk here.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So to start with a little bit of God talk, if you will, what is the most important argument for why theism is still acceptable in the contemporary world?
Well, that's a question that's hard to answer because I don't know that it is less acceptable now than it used to be. I'm fond of quoting some words that were written by an English abbot, one Peter of Cornwall, about the year 1200. And writing in that year, he said, "There are many people who do not believe that God exists, nor do they think that the human soul lives on after the death of the body. They consider the universe has always been as it is now and is ruled by chance rather than providence." Now, I always ask people who ask questions like the one you asked, do you think that we know something now that they didn't know in the year 1200 that makes belief in God less acceptable or more difficult than it was then? And I would like to know what that thing was that's been discovered since then. I'm not able to identify it. I believe in God. I haven't always believed in God. I sort of underwent a transition when I was about 40 from sort of not exactly atheism, but perhaps a fairly extreme agnosticism. Maybe there's a God, but that's not very likely, to being, an Episcopalian. So it's just, I need to answer people who ask questions like that. Tell me what you think it is about the modern world that makes belief in God less acceptable than it was, say, 800 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. I have a number of reactions there, but I want to keep moving. Maybe we'll come back to them. Mm-hmm. In terms of the importance of religious thought today, what do you feel, by and large, is one of or the most misunderstood ethic that religion at large has given the world?
I once watched with great pleasure the HBO series called Rome, and in the last discs from the DVDs, they had interviews with people, and they said, "Why are the Romans like us? Or how are they like us? And how are they different?" And they said they were different in their extreme brutality, both their willingness to commit brutal acts and their indifference to the brutality around them. "Oh," said the interviewer, "what do you think made the difference?" And the answer was Judeo-Christian morality. I think that was a very good answer. I've been in a conference where you had a lot of atheists railing against the morality of the God of the Hebrew Bible. And they never asked themselves the question, where did they get this morality that they're using to judge God with? And the answer is they got it from the Jews, through the Christians perhaps, but this is the morality of Sinai that God gave to the world. They're using it, maybe a slightly edited form for their own purposes, but it's not the common morality of the world. It's a very different thing, this belief that each human being is something of value.
So let me pick up on that point, because I think it's an incredibly important one. And I'm very aware when talking with a scholar of your magnitude that I'm asking very big, broad questions that you could write, can write or have written entire books on. But it's your willingness and ability to respond to them in a meaningful way is why I'm continuing. What is the relationship between human nature and religious morality? Which is to say, human nature for bloodthirst or violence hasn't changed from the Roman period to now. What is it about an ethic that emerges from religious teaching that how it relates to that nature?
The Roman, the Greek, the Egyptian, the morality of the ancient Levant was a morality that said that kings and rulers could do pretty much what they wanted. Then along came a morality that said, ordinary people are important too. In fact, they're just as important as the kings and the rulers. There's no element of divinity in the kings and rulers. They're just human beings like the rest of us. And that was a very different thing. At one point, only the Jews had that. Then it spread through Christianity to people throughout the Roman world, and people began to find that an attractive idea. That is, ordinary people.
Okay, so has religion run its course then? Because this is now a secular idea. Now that it's been ingrained into, to some degree, into Western thought, post-Kantian era, and into the notion of human rights, into the model of secular society. Does religion still need to be present to uphold such a notion of human dignity and that the most powerful are not more divine?
Well, that's a very interesting question. It's very hard to predict the future, isn't it? I mean, it's very hard to predict. I guess that's what we do predict, is the future. It's very hard to make any predictions about, supposing that this secularization should continue, what would be the effect on human morality? I don't know, but we might, I can remember a self-satisfied atheist saying, well, people said we would start to behave badly when religion became less important. It hasn't happened. And I said, well, what would you say, for example, about the Soviet Union? There you have a nation where millions and millions of people were killed individually with a pistol shot in the back of the neck in a cell somewhere. Don't you, a nation ruled by atheists, do you think there's some connection there? Well, it's very hard to prove anything like that. But that was something that this person had never even considered. And he hemmed and he hawed when he heard that, and he didn't really have a reply to it. So I think, there are, if you look at the Soviet Union or Maoist China or the killing fields in Cambodia, all of which are the places where you really had atheists in political control of something, it raises questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you believe do you believe the problem of evil can be solved? And let me take a tangent to kind of get to that question. I don't want to oversimplify the camps, but let's say someone conservative might often suggest that we are declining, right? We are declining. We once had the good old days of truth, and we're getting further from that, truth and morality. A progressive, on the other hand, might say, oh, every generation we're getting closer to a moral just society. Or someone like a Steven Pinker who says the world is getting less violent. And then there's the postmoderns who want to say every form of progress brings a new form of oppression. It's all cyclical. There's nothing linear at all. And so I wonder, like, what is your commitment to kind of a trajectory of history and how that relates to this question of whether the problem of evil can ever be really mitigated or resolved?
Well, there are two separate questions there. One is about the problem of evil, which is a problem about God and why he allows evil in the world. And then there's this question, exactly what kind of evil is going on in the world, and is it getting a little better or a little worse or a lot better or a lot worse? Let's just say that first of all, this identification of moral progress is pretty much treating the whole world as if it were Europe and the English-speaking countries. And then, even then, when you suddenly get to the 20th century, and you find that up to then, the average, I hope I've got this figure right, each country murdered about 3% of its own citizens in a century. In the 20th century, countries murdered about 7% of their, and I'm not talking about capital punishment, I'm talking about extra legal destruction of human beings. It suddenly went from 3 to 7% in this century that was supposed to be the culmination of the ages. In this century, we don't know what's going to happen yet. So, I mean, I understand Steven Pinker's arguments, and his was the name that popped into my mind when you said that. And there is something to be said for his thesis, but even if there has been this kind of progress, it could be very fragile. We really don't know what's going to happen.
You used the term earlier, Judeo-Christian, and I know that's used quite commonly. And I wonder in what ways that's a helpful phrase and what ways it's not. Do you feel, what is it that you think binds those two traditions so closely together, other than what, a Torah and Old Testament, whatever we call it, that makes it similar enough that we can talk about a Judeo-Christian ethic? And is Islam as the third Abrahamic faith different enough that it really is something fundamentally different than a Judeo-Christian ethic?
Well, of course, both Christianity and Islam grew out of Judaism. If there hadn't been Judaism, there wouldn't be either of those. Christianity, I mean, every book of the Hebrew Bible is a sacred Christian text, just as much as the Greek Bible. There's no differentiation there. Salvation comes through the Jews. Christians and Jews disagree about the way it comes through the Jews. Everybody agrees. Christians, I don't know what the Islamic view on it, probably different, but we agree that the Jews are a people specially chosen by God, and that this is a role that no other people has. It's a special role. What that role is different according to Christianity and Judaism, but it's recognized as unique and essential and central by Christianity. Our Christian morality is the morality of Sinai. And that is, Jesus said he didn't come to alter the law. Not one jot or tittle is going to be different. So we got it from you.
Yeah.
That's why it's Judeo-Christian. It came to the Jews. It was spread more by Christians.
Yeah. Right. And do you think the enterprise, when we talk about Abrahamic faiths, of Islam today is in a similar camp or fundamentally different?
I wish I knew more about Islam than I do. I mean, I've been very impressed by one quotation that I often hear from the Quran, which is, God is closer to you than the pulse in your throat. And yeah, that's true. It's central to Islam that the evils of the world are due to people trying to put themselves in God's place, to take over, to snatch the world out of God's hands. Yes, that's something that Christians and Jews can agree on.
Yeah.
But exactly the points on which Islam differs in morality from, I know very little about theoretical Muslim ethics, so I'm hesitant to say anything about Islamic morality. I mean, about not about whether Muslims are moral, but about what they say about morality.
Right, right, very good. Okay, Professor Peter Van Inwagen, thank you so much for taking this time, for sharing these insights with us, and we wish you continued good health and success.
Thank you, Rabbi. A very great pleasure.